Hi everyone, my name's Annie Clements and I'm here today to talk about the connection with food and school, which can be some real issues for our children and for families and equally for teachers and classroom environments. It was something that we were asked to create a training for from a teacher who felt that she really needed some more information about how best to support one of her children that had got ADHD and autism around food, and whether just having an apple for snack was enough in relation to keeping him calm and being able to better manage his behaviour. So here we are, that's what we're going to do. So just to clarify, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a health professional. So this information that I'm about to share with you is purely from experience of working with our children and equally with adults, in that food is quite an integral part of your support mechanisms and things that you need to understand that can help just make their day and ultimately yours also go better. So that's what we're going to talk about. So we need to look at the whole day. We know that our children can have real issues around food, both from a sensory perspective and where their imagination process fractures can also impact on the way that they eat. And also, I think it's quite important that they can sometimes really not be aware that they need the food or that it's relevant, and equally not just food but fluids as well. So, and yet we know that from our own personal experience potentially as well, that when we don't eat we can be a bit more grumpy maybe, and equally can find certain situations harder to manage when we're hungry, and so those things suddenly become really, really important when it looks at a school day. So first is breakfast, which we all know many children are really not big fans of breakfast, and I think it's worth trying to look a little bit beyond what we would normally have for breakfast in these particular instances, and seeing if there's different ways to enable our children to have something in their tummies before they walk in through the school gate. So first of all, we're always looking to try and combine protein and carbohydrate, because we know that that works really well. We also know that children need some appropriate level of sugar to help them through the day, as we all do, and help them grow in some cases. So we're looking for combinations of those things. Obviously, giving our children high sugar cereal in the morning is not conducive to things then going particularly well during the morning in school, and it is worth thinking about that. So we need to throw out of the window what we would consider maybe as being traditional breakfast foods. So cereal, toast. Toast is fine, can I say, as long as it's got something like baked beans or cheese or a ham toasty or something along those sort of lines, so you're getting that combination of protein and carbohydrates in with the mix. Making sure they have something to drink. Water is obviously fab, but they could also be having a fruit smoothie. So again, you're giving them some good things into their tummy. But remember, fruit on its own needs something added with it, which is something that runs through the whole of the day. So bear in mind what it is you're going to give. If they won't eat before they leave the house, then let them eat a cheese sandwich walking to school. It's more important to get something in their tummy than it is to worry too much about when it happens, because it helps them being able to manage that school environment, which we know is really, really difficult for them. So I mean, there's certainly been days where breakfast hasn't gone in my children's tummy when they were little, and I mean, my middle son, who used to go to school in school transport, he used to have effectively 2 packed lunches. So he had his packed lunch that he had at lunchtime, but he also had a breakfast box as well, and he would eat that in the car far better than he would eat it sitting in our house before he went to school. So we have to think beyond what we would consider a normal structure, as we do for everything with our children, and it's important to bear that in mind. They might prefer to have some pasta before they go to school. Do you know what I mean? Just think beyond what you would consider to be within that normal breakfast framework, because we've got to work with them, and the calories going into their tummy are far more important than worrying about it being a set breakfast food at this point. And then we come to during the day, which now becomes school's responsibility around our children wanting to eat. And our children can find eating at school very difficult. They can find eating at school in front of other children hard. Some of it is they get self-conscious themselves about eating in front of other people. Some of them don't like to watch people eat. They don't, especially when they don't keep their mouths closed, which lots of children don't. The noise of people eating, the sight of people eating, all the stuff to do with, you know, metal knives and forks on china plates if they're in hot dinners, and noisy lunchroom halls, and also especially for our ADHD children, the overwhelming desire to get out in that playground and kick a ball. So I'm not going to eat, I'm just going to go out of the door and play. Thank you very much. And others who may take a really long time to eat their lunch. And maybe schools finding that problematic over being able to provide that space and supervision for them to be able to finish their food. So there's lots to think about here. The one thing I want to talk about first is snacks. So there's lots of schools, especially primary, who would consider fresh fruit being a good thing for children to have at snack time. And of course, they're absolutely right. But when it comes to our children, they need something else with that. And it's actually really important that we consider that. And maybe schools need to think a little bit outside of the box here, just the same as parents, on the basis that it's great for them to have an apple, but have some cheese with it as well. If they can have some protein and carb, if they can have some toast, they can have a sandwich, maybe a tub of cold pasta with ham on it. Again, just think a little bit more than beyond fresh fruit here, please. It's really important that they have additional things, additional nutrients going into their system to try and stabilize their mood. They are burning an enormous amount of emotional energy by sitting in a classroom. The amount of effort it can take to maintain themselves in a classroom with noise and smells and learning and everything that's required from that, it's all burning up calories and causing stress. And if they're not then refueled, ready to come into the next part of the morning, it just causes more and more problems. So it makes a lot of sense for schools to start to think that maybe some of these children need something else. And you'll all know children that maybe do arrive with no breakfast, and then 10 o'clock break is when actually their tummies are ready to eat. And so we need to consider how we handle that and the impact that it potentially has on classrooms when we don't handle that. And children who are hungry then causing issues around what could be perceived as being potential behaviour issues when actually they just need something to eat. And so please start thinking beyond that. In relation to school dinners and the sensory issues with that, our children are not making it up when they're saying they can't be in that lunch hall. Right, the noise is too big, the smells, suddenly being in a room with lots of children maybe, as opposed to the 30 that they may have been within their classroom, and the pressure of eating in front of everybody else, all the reasons that I've already mentioned earlier on in the session. And so that's why our children prefer to eat in a quieter space, and maybe be with a different group of children. And but they sometimes do need time to eat, because it can be quite a challenge for them in that space. But again, consider not only the time frame around it, but the fact that if they're then going into the afternoon where they've now not eaten right through from maybe breakfast or 10 o'clock play, right through to the end of the school day, the chances of there being some sort of issue in the classroom in the afternoons then becomes higher, and they're certainly not able to concentrate in a way that you would want them to from a learning environment. And then we come to coming out of school, which turns back over into parent responsibility time. So it's important to consider this, mums and dads or grandmas, whoever's picking up your child. For many of them, they won't necessarily have eaten well during school because of the pressures that we've talked about. Their tummies could be running on empty, and they're about to let out that emotional bottle of all of the stuff that they've held together all day. Please don't wait till you get home to give them a snack. Please don't even wait till you get out of the playground to give them something to eat and drink. All right, they need that literally as soon as they reach your feet in the playground. Okay, so again, concentrate on protein and carbs. Peanut butter sandwich on the way home, cheese sandwich, just think it through what they can eat. Chocolate at that point and sugar can be useful, but only in very, very, very small amounts, in partnership with something else of the nature that we've already talked about. Don't just give them chocolate and then think that they're going to be fine. All right, because that sugar rush that comes off the top of needing the overwhelm that comes from coming out of school and allowing their school day to unravel in front of you is not a good combination for being able to manage that. So as soon as they come out and they reach you, they need food and something to drink. Again, something low sugar, preferably water, and they can then eat or drink that in a playground or walking home, right? But everybody that's followed that, where we've been preaching this message for some considerable time, they've all said the difference that made was just huge. Is it going to stop the overwhelm from school completely? No, but everyone will say it just calmed it down, right? It wasn't as big because they were then unpacking that on a tummy with some food in and some fluid inside them. They need that energy burst from food, that energy refill, and it's something to really take into consideration. The other thing I would say is you need to be very aware that these things work very, very well also on the basis of being able to bed them into things that you're doing at home. And so considering behaviours in relation to food is absolutely imperative. I hope you found this video really useful. If you're able to leave some comments underneath, that would be brilliant. Thanks very much. Bye bye.